Call the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission to order. Would you stand with me, please? I'll lead the prayer, and Mike, would you lead the pledge? Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the blessings and opportunities we have to again serve our fellow man, and we thank you for that. Heavenly Father, tonight our hearts are saddened with the passing of Mr. Mankin. We thank you for him, his life, and the service that he has given to this county, and we thank you so very much for that. Pray that you'll just be with his family and help them through their trying times. Pray that you'll just be with us here tonight in our meetings and all down through life. In Christ's name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Call the roll, please, ma'am.
Rhonda Allen. Here. Richie Boland. Here. Veronica Buchanan. Here. Will Jordan. Here. Mike Cush. Present. Jeff Phillips. Present. Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught. Here. Vincent Windrow. Here. And Craig Lynch.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, Codes Department, David.
Building Codes Department report is on the table.
All right. We'll be looking over that. If you have any questions, we can ask David before the end of the meeting. Doug, anything withdrawn or deferred?
No, sir. Nothing withdrawn nor deferred.
Reclassification request. We'll have a public hearing on. We have two tonight. First one is Frida Adcock, Word and Spirit Church, conditional use permit. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Chairman Lynch. Our first application this evening is located at 4137 Shippeville Highway. The site is approximately 4 acres in size. The property is zoned R15 and is currently being used for a church. They want to operate a 5-day-a-week licensed daycare center for children ages 6 weeks to 5 years old. They also considering adding an after-school program in the future. The hours of operation would be from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and they estimate they'll have about 35 children the first year. They hope to have 69 children in the future. They do plan on using the existing building. Here's just a little sketch. And the existing parking areas. They will be adding a playground, fenced-in playground for the site. The property received one variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow an illuminated sign in a residential zone. This area is part of the Christiana Buchanan land use study, and it shows the future land use of this property is mixed use. The daycare center would, of course, be compatible with this future land use designation. And just a quick view of the property and the surrounding area. And this is the building they would house the daycare center in, and then the playground would be there to the side. The applicant is present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions before we open it up to a public hearing? No? If not, we'll open it up to a public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak? Okay, that's fine. Does anyone here have a question of the applicant? Would you come forward, please? Would you come forward, please? Just come right here to that mic. Just come around. Just turn around. Just turn around. Come on this side. Come on this side of the mic. Yes. Give us your name and address.
My name is Frida Adcock, and my home address or the address of the property?
The property will be fine.
The property is at 4137 Shelbyville Highway. It's a 37127 zip.
Ms. Allen had a question.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the daycare center going to be operated and owned by the church? Is that it, or is it? I wasn't clear on the way the application was presented.
Yes, ma'am. It will be owned and operated by the church. It'll be an additional ministry of the church.
Is it a separate business entity from the church, or is it the same?
It'll, in terms of, it'll have its own checking account, its own all of that. It won't be, all the money won't go directly into the church, but it will fall under that 501c3. Yes, ma'am. And it will be an outreach of the church.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, ma'am. Is anyone in opposition to this, or anyone else wish to speak for this? Anyone?
I see no one. We'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back to the commission. Have a motion? Have a motion to approve? Have a second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. Pinnacle National Bank.
Okay. Our next application is for a property located on Rucker Lane. It's approximately 86 acres in size. It is currently zoned R15 with a conditional use permit for a planned residential development. They are requesting to amend the conditions to remove the condition that requires Rucker Lane to be improved before Phase 2 construction can begin. So this PRD was originally approved in November 2006. Muirwood is supposed to be comprised of 324 lots on approximately 122 acres of property. And here's the concept plan that was approved back in 2006. Now, since that time, a final subdivision plat has been recorded for Phase 1 of the project, and to date, 5 single-family building permits have been issued for the property. So really what we're discussing this evening is the 86 acres of undeveloped land that is also part of the project. Now, most of the surrounding area is either already developed in single-family residence or is subdivided or being in the process of being subdivided. And the city has plans to improve Rucker Lane to make it a 3-lane road and it's also going to realign the intersection to intersect with their new Veterans Parkway, which this segment of Veterans Parkway should be completed near the end of the year, so it's actually ahead of schedule. Now, when this project was originally approved, they did place the condition that the Phase 2 could not begin until Rucker Lane had been improved by the city. At the time, that was scheduled to take place in 2008. Obviously, it has been delayed a bit at this point. The current capital improvements plan for the city of Murfreesboro has slated the improvement of Rucker Lane to 2013. That is actually an update from when the staff report went out. In the staff report, it said 2012. It has been amended to 2013. Now, of course, the capital improvements plan is reviewed every year and is subject to change, so it could change back at some point in the future. Now, the original application, the title to this property is actually transferred back to Pinnacle National Bank, which was the original lender for the Muirwood subdivision, and they have found a potential buyer. However, the buyer is unwilling to move forward with the purchase until this condition that requires Rucker Lane to be improved by the city is removed. And so that's the request you have before you. Here's a look into the property. You can see, the existing section that has been completed. As I said, there are a couple of houses out there. And then Rucker Lane as it is today. And then this map here, I just want to show you how Rucker Lane was going to be realigned to intersect with Veterans Parkway. So you can see about a half-mile south of the project is where they're going to redirect the road to where it hits the new Veterans Parkway. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, question, Steve?
Yes, Elizabeth, I can't remember. A lot of water went under the bridge since then about why we required that to come in place before this Phase 2. Can you kind of give us a little bit of remembrance on that?
Well, yeah, and like I said, we've all slept since then. But as I recall, there was just, at the time, there was a lot of development, still is, but, with the city's developments across the street with the Marymount subdivision, at the time, we felt, with the imminent, we thought, improvement to Rucker Lane, I think that there was some just general concern with the Planning Commission that with all the lots being added in that area, that they wanted to see the road improved before the subdivision was completely built out. And the 60 lots was kind of a compromise between the developer and the Planning Commission, basically saying, okay, we'll let you go forward with this particular development since the road is to be improved here before too long. 60 lots should be enough to get you started, get you going for a while, and by the time you get to the end of that 60 lots, the road will be 3-laned, and then you can continue on with your development. Now, since that time, when that was approved, of course, the economy's gone south, so to speak. There's about 5, like we said earlier, there's only about 5 houses in there, which means they still have 55 lots to develop in Section 1. And the road improvement, they've really put more of their resources in the Veterans Parkway, the city has, as opposed to the improvement to Rucker Lane. So again, with the improvement to Veterans Parkway supposed to be done probably by the end of the year-ish, give or take a month or two. At the time, again, we thought this was more imminent than it turned out to be with all the circumstances that happened. So the bank taking back possession of the subdivision at this point, they're just asking with another developer in mind that would like to purchase the subdivision to ask for some leniency on that particular condition. So that's a brief overview.
Doug, are they, I guess, donating that right of way or that front part of that property on Rucker down through there as far as potential?
Yes. When they recorded Section 1, there was some right of way dedicated at that time. Now, when you go, you can kind of see it. You can see,
a little jog right there, but you don't see it all the way across the property.
Yeah, whenever they get down to that point of developing the next sections and everything, we would just require that of them at the same time. Now, something else to keep in mind, this development is served by the sewer by the city of Murfreesboro, so they have to review the plats as well. So, I mean, we'll catch it, but if for some reason the city would, and vice versa, if for some reason they didn't, we would. So, but to answer your question, yes, that's part of it.
I don't really want to pass the buck. So if we required here to continue what was donated on that right of way, so to speak, then that would be sufficient with what we've done to the.
That is correct. That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Come on.
Doug, it is totally a city road project? The Rucker Lane project. It's not a joint project. Yeah, it's not a joint project like Halls.
I don't believe it is. Based on the information that was provided to us from the city of Murfreesboro on their capital improvements program, and Mr. Corbett, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that the funding for that was all going to be from the city using a TML bond, is what it looked like.
I vaguely remember this coming through, and I remember some people being against it. I mean, I'm trying to remember if we made a compromise with the surrounding neighbors out there and promised them this in exchange. I don't remember there being a lot of people up here against it. I mean, it's been a few years and stuff, but I would hate to promise these neighbors this if there were could you remember if there was a large group of, people in the area and this was our trade-off with them? Because it is, it says here it's zoned R15, but it is a PRD, which has more density than R15. That was a trade-off. And I would hate to promise us around that neighborhood, you're not going to have to put up with these extra. How many lots are in that 86 acres?
Well, the total subdivision was 324 or 23.
But this is the bulk of the, 2/3 of the property. So there's 200 plus lots in this 86 acres. And I don't know, the economy's they're not going to sell those houses the next 6 months anyway, or next maybe 5 years. The road may be done anyway, but I just hope we didn't promise the neighborhood out there something that I don't remember if this was a compromise or not.
Mr. Jordan, the subdivision originally was taken to the city to be annexed. Then that area is caught in the lawsuit that they've got going. So they came to us and said, can we develop this because we don't want to be tied up for 2 or 3 years in court.
I remember that portion of it. I remember they were tied up with the lawsuit, so they couldn't be annexed, and we were kind of a stopgap measure so they could proceed on. But.
Right. So we put that in there with them building to the city standards because they're going to, but they were able to put it in the county at that time.
All right. Any other questions before we open it up to a public hearing? Any other questions? Okay, we'll open it up to a public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak for this?
Yes, I'm Glenn Lane with Pinnacle National Bank, and I don't know that there's a lot that I can add, excuse me, over what's been said. I did talk with Bill Rowland, who was the original developer, and of course, as he had told me in '06 when this was approved, it was on the city plan for 2008, which was not a big concern. And I think the situation we have here now is probably, it's not that someone's going to want to go right in there and start developing it, even though they could do that if we got this approved. The situation we find ourselves in is that it's basically unmarketable with the uncertainty. A buyer is looking at it from the standpoint that it was '08, when we made this application, it was moved to 2012. Since then, it's been moved to 2013. So the situation is no one's really willing to come in and buy that property with the uncertainty that we may never be able to develop it. And I think we all know that's not the situation, but if we were putting the money out, so to speak, we might sort of feel the same way. So I think that's basically we have a contract for an investor to buy the property, but that stipulation has to be taken out. And I think we'd all like to see something happen. I mean, it's probably going to be a slow enough recovery anyway, but I think that's sort of the key to, getting something, excuse me, something actually going there. So, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, Steve?
Yes, sir. Then you don't have a problem with the additional right-of-way that's needed on those front lots for the length of that property for future, whenever it comes through, whether they keep pushing it back, and like this Veterans Parkway it very well may keep pushing it back. So if it ever does get widened or improved.
I think that's a possibility. I would not see any issue with that. I think that's already part of the plan. Is that?
Yeah, that's one of the conditions that's on it already.
Yeah, that's a condition that's already there. So the only condition we're asking for is to remove the situation where you wouldn't issue building permits until Rucker Lane was done, because we have no control over it. So.
Okay, any other questions? Anna?
Do you think there's any sort of a middle ground or compromise as opposed to taking it from, 60 to 324, just taking it completely off? Do you think there's a middle ground, or do you think anything would kill the deal?
I really think anything would kill the deal, just being honest about it. The one thing that I don't know, we're selling this in conglomeration with some other subdivisions, and I think they're looking probably to try to find a builder to go in there. My guess, even though I don't want to tell you this as a fact, is that there's still a lot of lots to be absorbed in that first phase, but I think it's just the uncertainty, and they just want to have that freedom to be able to do that in case they were to need to.
Mike?
The lots in purple, Elizabeth, is that all phase one? Or is that?
That's correct. Those lots are actually legally platted and could be sold.
Okay. So, and there's basically 5 or 6 houses built on phase one right now?
5 permits have been issued.
Okay. All right.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Thank you, Glenn. Anyone else wish to speak? Your name, sir?
Gary Farley. I'm the county commissioner of that area, and I thought I was off the planning commission, and first month back I'm up here. But to answer some of the questions you had a while ago, part of it was it was being asked to be annexed into the city. Then that's when the lawsuit occurred, and then the developer comes to the county. That way they would have it as an out-of-city sewer customer, and they wanted it to develop it, and it was done that way. I have been trying, I know for 16 years, my previous 4 terms, trying to get Rucker Lane widened. It is a city project. It was going to be widened in 2008. The economy fell. It got pushed back. Hadn't been done. I think this measure was actually trying to get the road widened. Was one reason that it was put on there, to try to force the issue, maybe you might say. Rucker Lane, it needs to be widened. The way the economy is right now, I don't foresee it getting anything before 2013. Right now, I understand where the bank's coming from, they're trying to get this off their books. On that measure, I understand what the neighbors out there, they want it widened as much as I do. I live out there on Rucker Lane. I know what it is. I travel it every day. My kids travel it every day. But I've not heard anything from any neighbors. I know there's a couple of neighbors are here tonight. I don't know what their thoughts are on it. I know Mr. Jarrett has been out there a long time, and you know, I want it widened, but I understand where the bank's coming from as well. So
you were for or against?
Both sides.
Take a stand.
Yeah. I like the idea you brought up a while ago about some kind of compromise. Maybe the 60 lots, the first 60 lots, you know, maybe moving that up. But I think, Glenn, you said a while ago that may be a deal killer for you all. Would y'all be willing to try that, see if it's a deal killer?
I'm certainly willing to check into it. You know, I don't know. One thing I didn't mention, I just moved into that area. I travel it most every day as well. I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is the city doesn't have any motivation to hurry on it because of Veterans Parkway, which I think will help some.
Right.
But I almost think, and you know, I'm speaking not just because I'm from the bank and I want to get it done.
Hey, Glenn, we need to get you on mic.
How much of that didn't hear? Okay. As I was saying, I told Gary I just moved into that area. Also, I just moved to Armstrong Valley Road, and I cut through there. My family does almost every day. I'm excited about Veterans Parkway because that will help some, and I think it'll help take some traffic off here. But still, Rucker is a fast, easy way to get over to 96. It would probably sound like I'm saying this just because I'm up here requesting this, but I honestly think if the sooner we can get somebody in there doing something, the faster the city's going to widen the road. So it's almost a chicken and egg sort of thing, but I think they really have no incentive under the current situation to widen it, where if we get some activity going and you almost got to put more traffic on it to give them the incentive to do it. So am I willing to go back and say, hey, you know, what if we can get half of it? Sure I am. You know, but at the same time, it could be a deal killer. And I realize y'all are not responsible for us selling the property, but I think at the end our goal is all the same. It's there and something needs to happen. I would doubt very seriously that those lots would be completed before it was widened anyway, but it could be. At the same time, if y'all put yourself in the situation of a buyer and say, would I go buy this piece of property with that stipulation in there and not knowing when it's going to happen, I probably wouldn't do it. So.
Well, Mr. Chairman, all we're doing is, on the request, is taking off the Rucker Lane improvement before this thing is developed. We can handle that part through the site plan when it comes to us. Whoever buys it, whoever brings it to us and plans it out, as far as, you know, another section or another section. So I don't want to get the cart before the horse here, but I mean that's what's looking at us right now. We can just take that requirement off for this property, and then once it comes for us through site plan, then we can add whatever we want to on that, you know, but not put it back on as far as the widening of Rucker Lane, as far as how many houses you're going to develop at one time or something. I think that's when we address it.
Glenn, this is an out-of-state buyer too, is that?
No, it's not an out-of-state buyer, it's an out-of-county buyer.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Any other questions?
Let me say this, Mike. As far as I know, it's an out-of-county buyer. You know, you never know these days who's selling who to what, but our deal that we're working with is I believe, a Williamson County buyer.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against while we have a public hearing? Does anyone wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Farley, the history on that property, didn't they request, the original owners, didn't they request incorporation into the city of Murfreesboro, right?
They first went to the city of Murfreesboro and asked for annexation. What happened is that caused an island, per se, that they say caused it to have to be annexed into the city of Murfreesboro. And that's when the lawsuit occurred after that. So at first they asked for annexation into the city. And then when that occurred, they come to the county. Is that correct? And the city planner shaking his head yes.
So is annexation or incorporation into the city of Murfreesboro in the future for that piece of property?
There is, whenever the lawsuit is heard, there's actually two lawsuits. There's one lawsuit on out there, and I think in either yours or Trey's area, out there off Manson Pike. And once that lawsuit is heard, it will, whether it's won or lost or whatever, will probably the second one, which is this area, plus the area across 96 over in the off Grisham Lane area, is all included in that second lawsuit. So once the first one is heard, then they have the second one, and more than likely they're both compatible.
You mentioned lawsuits, and
the citizens. There's some citizens out there that filed a lawsuit against the city of Murfreesboro concerning the annexation. To stop the annexation. That's been probably 4.5 years ago.
Commissioner Farley, I have a question. Then, so then, what's the city's incentive going to be to improve that road if the people out there don't want to be annexed? I mean, why would they improve it anyway?
I can't answer that question.
You just seem like you were familiar with the lawsuits. I thought maybe you'd been in conversation with
all
folks.
I know, I'm not familiar with the lawsuit. I'm familiar with what led to the lawsuit, but I'm not familiar with the lawsuit.
Well, Marymount Springs is across the street, and that is in the city, is it not?
Yes.
And so there is city on both sides of that road. It's just sporadic up and down through there.
There's Marymount is in the city. The Swanson development along Moreland Lane to Meadowwood subdivision is in the city. Across the street there is my subdivision, Old South, Country Park, Higdon, and Faithway area are in the county. So there's county city along Rooker Lane. The majority of it right now is the county, but that's where that annexation bid is going on.
All right. Any other questions? I'm sorry? It's still open. Public hearing is still open. Does anyone else wish to speak before we close the public hearing?
You asked a question a while ago about, or made a statement, Steve, about on the site plan, it could be brought back up through the site plan process and hold up. If it was taken out and brought up where there can only be, say, 7,500 lots approved through the site plan process, that could be done that way.
Well, I'm saying that's another opportunity that it could, otherwise it would go all into Section 2 here, but we could make a requirement on it, unless I stand corrected, that we could say, well, that half of it be developed or whatever like that. I don't know if it would or not, but I'm just saying we did that in this section right here.
I mean, yeah, you could amend,
or this property.
Rather than just take the condition off, you could just say, 150 lots, or, I don't think there was anything magical about 60 lots on the front end. It just was a good round number at the time. I mean, the same, that same philosophy could apply here. Rather than just taking the condition off, you could just allow more lots, but not the whole subdivision.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak before we close the public hearing? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to you. Yes.
I've got a question to Mr. DeMasi. If and when this lawsuit is settled, and if the city prevails, and they go ahead and annex this property, which was asked for, then then our requirements would just go away, would they not?
Well, it goes into the city as a grandfathered development. From that point, they'd be under the city requirements, and if the city wanted to make any changes to that from that
It
standpoint.
would be the city's prerogative rather to
That's correct,
keep
at that
this in
point.
force or not.
That's correct.
At that point in time.
Okay, questions, Vincent?
We couldn't be any less restrictive. We could be more restrictive. We couldn't be any less restrictive than the city.
In regards...
And anything that we put on through planning. I mean, if they required whatever 60 houses in section, we couldn't require 80 or something. I mean, that...
Yeah, well, I think you're correct. The reason being is because they're on the sewer. If the city says, we're only going to give you sewer for 60 lots, even if we say, well, you can have 100, the city can still say, well, you're just going to have sewer for 60 lots. And so they're going to be tied to that. I don't, and I'm kind of speaking, I probably shouldn't even mention, but I don't think the city had any issue with the 60 lots. I don't think that was really something that they were that concerned about. Now, there is a representative from the city here. If I'm incorrect in that, he can certainly correct me. But, of course, they get copies of our agendas and everything, and no one has called me and said, oh, you have to keep that on there and everything. So I don't think that was really a concern that they had in that regard. I could be mistaken, but that's my understanding. So,
Vincent, you had a question?
Just to be clear, what Steve suggested, is that not an option?
As far as allowing more lots, you mean?
No, in terms of removing the condition. And
yeah.
then
yeah, if you just wanted to remove the condition entirely, then that's their application. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. That's what they're asking for. They're just asking to remove that one condition. Everything else that's approved would still be the same.
And we would get to see it again with the site plan.
Well, it'd be a plat technically,
Okay.
but yeah, the preliminary plat and the final plat. Now, again, they still have 55 lots that they haven't developed yet, or they haven't built on yet in phase 1 or section 1. I don't necessarily foresee another plat coming on Muirwood anytime soon, especially with the economy the way it is right now. We're seeing some pickup, but just not a whole lot at this point. So.
Okay, other questions?
One more. Now, if I'm understanding this correctly, we can't take the amendment out now, or take the 60 lots out now with the intention of putting them back in or being more restrictive when it comes back to site plan, though, can we?
Well, that is correct. Yeah, if you take it out and then they come back and say, well, we want to put 100 lots in right now, if they meet the subdivision regulations at that point, you can't say, well, I'm really only comfortable with you putting another 40 lots in. Right.
Yeah, I didn't want that to be what we were thinking.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, if you take that off, then, yeah, it's gone. But, I mean, now the other conditions that are on there as far as right-of-way dedication and those kind of things, of course, those can still be enforced. But, yeah, once this has gone off the conditions and it comes back as a plat, you're really just looking at it, does it meet the subdivision regulations and the zoning resolution at that point?
All right, question, Mike?
Doug, this is one of those subdivisions where we approve it, but it's built to city spec.
That's correct.
The city still has to sign off.
The city still has to approve it. Actually, yeah, the city still has to run it through their planning commission.
Just like out at Buchanan or wherever.
That's correct.
So the ball is still in the city's court, and it's a city road, right? Ultimately will be a city road.
Well, if the property's ever annexed and the I think a lot of the right-of-way is within the city. Now, there are some parts of it that aren't. That was really what caused the whole thing, was they were annexing that development, and there was no gap in between where that was going to be and the rest of the area. If they could have left the right-of-way out, then there may have been a gap in there, but the right-of-way was already, as I understand it, was already in the city. So,
but if this buyer goes and they say, we want to put, they sell off 40 of these lots and get houses started with it, they say, we want to do 60 more lots. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, the city has to sign off on this.
At this point, yes. I mean, we both have to sign off on it because it's
we do in the city, but
yeah, the city will have to sign off on it, and so will the county, because it's, like you said, because of the sewer has to be built to city standards.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions? What's your wishes? Mike? Kush.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion to approve the request as stated in our agenda to remove the condition that requires Rucker Lane for improvement before phase 2 can begin.
Have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second? Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? No? Oh, we get one no? One no, Richie? Okay. Motion carries. All right. Anything else on it?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. All right.
That's correct. It'll go to the commission next month in October.
Both of these go before the full commission.
That is correct.
On what night?
October.
October.
Hold on. Let me get the
Come on,
calendar.
Commissioner. When's your
Let's
next meeting?
see.
October 14th? October 14th. October the 14th.
Yeah,
Okay.
October 14th. That's correct. That's correct.
All right. Staff reports, other business, amendment to the zoning regulations, sign regulations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just continuing on with the proposed amendments to the sign resolution, the sign regulations in our zoning. Of course, we had another work session on this at the last Planning Commission meeting back in August, and I just we've basically what you have before you now in your agendas is updated based on that discussions that we had. And I'll just run through those real quick. You should have a copy of that in your agenda packets. Basically, one of the well, let me just go page by page, probably the easiest way to do it. Looking at, starting on page 7, you'll notice that item O is crossed out. Item O, that was a lot of the area that we were discussing, the time frame on digital signs, or automatic changeable copy, as we were calling them. Basically, at the time, we were looking at 5 minutes, except for time and temperature, which could change a little more frequently than that. Basically, what we decided to do was, rather than change it right here, what I thought would be a better approach is take it out of O, back on page 6 under G, changeable copies. That's where we placed the new language that we came up with, and that should have been bolded as an addition. I apologize that I did not do that. But basically what we decided on, or the Planning Commission decided on at that time, was any message, with the exception of time and temperature, would have to stay static for at least 30 seconds. Anything besides that, again, the time and temperature signs could change every 8 seconds, but everything else was 30 seconds. So that change actually, it made more sense to place that regulation under the changeable copy as opposed under the prohibited signs section. So we moved that there. Under the allowed signs on page 8, and this was probably one of the ones we had the most discussion on, had to do with the flags. Basically, as you recall, what we decided to do in that particular situation was we allowed an unlimited number of non-commercial flags like government flags, civic flags, those kind of things, decorative flags, and took away any kind of limit for square footage. So number 6 basically just says flags displaying non-commercial messages, government flags, civic flags, decorative flags, etc. We stopped it there. And then the flagpole shall not exceed the height and size requirements of the district which they are located. Moving on to, let's see. Moving on to the billboards on page 11. Again, we just took out the, remember there was some discussion about one per lot maximum as opposed to 1,000-foot separation. We just struck that first part of number 1, one per lot maximum. And a little further on, there's already some language in there about the 1,000-foot spacing. So that was the major change that was done there. That's pretty much the major changes that we discussed. There is one other small item that I will bring your attention to that's not in your, that's not actually on the signs.
Back on the billboard right quick.
Yeah.
One per lot maximum.
Right. That was struck.
That was struck out, so it went 1,000 feet.
That's correct.
Either way.
That's correct.
Or both ways. Okay.
Right. That's right. Just again, one small change that needed to be made was under the prohibited signs back on page 7. This was just something that actually I caught looking at the other day under N, where it's talking about off-premise signs except as allowed in section 20.04B2. It said G, but we actually added a couple other sections, so that should actually be I. We've made that change in our draft back at the office, but it didn't make it into this particular copy. And one other item actually that one other thing that we'll make sure gets into the draft, the interstate on-site signs, again, went to 120 feet. Your draft doesn't show that, but we'll make sure that gets in. I apologize for that as well. But again, other than that, those were the major changes that we discussed. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this point, but I think those were the main issues that there was some concern about, and I think we've taken care of those items. So,
all right, questions?
What's next?
At this point, if you're comfortable with this, we would like to hear a recommendation for approval of the proposed sign changes, and this would go before the Board of Commissioners in October as well.
Everybody okay? Motion to approve. May I have a second? Second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Doug, anything else?
No, sir. Actually, well, I do have just one item under just as an announcement. The Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee will be having a meeting next Monday, a week from today, at 6 o'clock over at the County's Board of Education building on South Park Drive.
In the main meeting area there, is that where it is?
Yes, yeah, same place they have the school board meetings, right. So just want to make that announcement and hope if anyone here can come, we sure love to have you.
Doug, next month, this sign issue goes to the full commission, correct?
Correct.
Can we, I was going to say, that's a whole lot of paper. We put a copy in everybody's mailbox in 21.
Well, we can do that email. It's not really, I mean, when you look at it, it's not that much paper front and back. I mean, it's not that not that bad to do. So
maybe if you email it and
we
leave
can
a copy in the county's
yeah.
executive's office or something, county mayor's office, rather.
Yeah, we can do that. And plus, we plan on having a presentation next month as well to kind of go over, you know, just the history of how we got to where we are and the major changes and that kind of thing. It's a lot to digest, I'll be the first to admit, but I think we have a pretty good product here. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Dale, you have anything?
Are we having one meeting or two this month?
We will have another meeting at the end of the month. We do have some plats. Also, Mr. Ed Cole from the Tennessee Transit Alliance, as far as we know, will be here in attendance to give us a brief presentation. He's tried to come the last couple months, but for various reasons hasn't been able to attend. Has always let us know ahead of time, but we anticipate having him here at the end of this month. So.
And it will be at 9?
Yes, yeah, that changed. That's a good reminder. At the last meeting, Plan Commissioners recalled that the time of that day meeting was changed to 9 a.m. That bylaw change that we had. So, yeah, that'll be at 9 a.m.
What's that date again?
The 27th. Mm-hmm.
That's our next meeting?
Yes.
At 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock over in our mezzanine.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir. I have nothing further.
Nothing? One.
Just for anybody who's interested, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., the VA call center in Smyrna is having their official dedication, and it's open to the public, and we're just celebrating that. I think they've brought, a lot of jobs to the area and revitalized that area. It was a former Walmart that they've converted, and it just looks beautiful. So tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in Smyrna and Hazelwood Drive.
Okay. Rhonda, it's what kind of call center?
The VA has brought a call center there. It's a service center for, I think it's for their hospitals. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Have a motion? Have a second? All in favor say aye.